Welcome everyone to one of the best tutorials I have ever made so far, and this one is going to be about how to make a block design. And this tutorial specifically has been asked by so many people want to see it. So yeah, I spent a lot of time making this block design, and today I'm gonna show you how you can do your own as well. And as always, my tutorials are going to be super duper beginner friendly so that everybody can follow along without any issues. So I would say slap that subscribe and also the like, and let's just get started. So the very first thing you want to do is go to create and then click on new and then go to the editor, and then you're gonna see this menu which looks pretty cool. And the very first step I would suggest everybody doing when you want to make a block design is firstly just make a small block that you would like to decorate. So for example, you could do something like this where it's just a basic block and then you just decorate it. However, that could be an issue because levels that are very simple, like these ones where it's just, you know, a rectangle, are usually not that very liked in the community and also by RobTop. So instead, what you want to do is try to be a bit more flexible with the block design. Don't make it too basic, basically. So to do that, it's actually very simple. So you want to go to this tab right here, and this is where the layout blocks are. And you just want to place one of these guys and just kind of like place them randomly at random spots and kind of make like a, you can say like a up and then a straight line and then a down. So now you have a bunch of edges, and now you just have to connect these guys. Now we are currently just making like the absolute layout for this, just so we can decorate and see what's inside the block and there. And once we have that, we can pretty much do whatever we want. So once you have that, by the way, in case you guys are wondering, there's always this corner block that you can use to put right here, which is just going to make it look a lot better. So I would highly suggest you guys use that as well. So now let's say you've got something like this, right? Now let's just add a bit more stuff that would, you know, fit our block design. Now, in case your block design is just like mine, where it's basically like these tiny grid blocks, so it's not this big, but it's rather this big, right? So you can see that there are places where this one's kind of cut off because it's like half a block. So in this case, you want to use these guys just to make everything fit together really well. So perfect. Now that is already a very good start because you already have a block that you can start decorating. So when it comes to decoration, it is very important to use layers, which you can see over here. So by clicking these numbers, you are switching between layers, and you're going to see exactly what that is in a bit. So number one step I always like doing when it comes to block design is go to a new layer. Let's say we go to layer 7 right here, and then you want to add an outline to these blocks, which is just going to make your block design look a lot better. And I'm going to show you guys, if I remember, I'm going to show you a difference between with and without these guys. So you guys remember how we used those blocks at the beginning to make our block design? So now we want to use a more thicker one, which is going to be these guys. You can see that this one is much thicker outline. So we're going to put these guys in here and kind of just align the corners with the other corners. So if it's like that, we want to go down and then right. And by the way, a small tip is to go to here and then settings and then switch these guys all the way to 12 and 3. This way you have a much bigger menu and it's much easier to work with. And yeah, let's just go ahead and fill in these guys. So it doesn't really matter if your block goes below the ground because that's not going to be visible in the game. So just add these blocks and kind of just fill in the outline to see how that's going to look like. And it is also not a problem if they overlap. Like as you guys can see, like this is overlapping with that one. That is also not an issue because we still have to like cover this area. And yeah, now don't forget about this corner block, also very important, because otherwise it's going to look very odd. So when it comes to placing corner blocks over there, so on the left, you can just place it like that. However, on the right, you don't want to just manually move it because that's going to lead to some weird stuff. So instead, place it and then go to here and just click this one. This way, it's just going to basically like flip it on the x-axis. And now you can just move it like that and it just gets into the perfect spot. So perfect. Now we have a much thicker outline overall, but we have these guys and we also have the thicker ones. So we want to give this one, the thicker one, a much higher or a much different color. So to do that, you just want to click on swipe and select all of these guys while being on this edit tab over here. Or if you're on PC, just hold shift and just do that. You're gonna select all of them and then click on edit object. And then you wanna select color 4, for example. 4 for me is always black. So if you click on here, just make it black and click on OK. And now you guys should see that this has turned black. But if you go all the way to all, you're gonna see that we can't see those guys for some reason. And that's because we've actually placed these blocks after those ones. So those ones are going to be kind of on top, although they have the exact same values in here. So simple fix, just select all of them again, click on edit group and just reduce the Z order by 1. And this way they are going to be behind. Actually, you're going to do -2. So you're going to do 1. And the reason for that is because if you go to these guys, so those outlines, and then click on edit group, you're going to see that they are on Z order of 2. So those ones should have a Z order that's lower than 2, which is 1 is also good. You can go below, but I'm just going to go 1 below it. So now you guys can see that it already looks pretty decent. And that's a very good start. And I'm also going to add a little thing over here. So you always want to add your black stuff like that. So the black outline in this case, you always want to add those on the same layer so that you don't get any issues with organizations and stuff. So select these guys, give them the color 4, edit group, and move them to Z order of 1. This way they are behind and it just looks much cleaner. And once you have that, just don't forget to always save. And now you want to think about your design. What do you want your design to look like? And for me, I'm going to choose a, orangey, more purple-ish stuff because I like those colors a lot. So it is actually very difficult to decorate this entire thing. So what I like to do is you can call it like a cheat code. I like to go to a new layer. Let's go to layer 9. And then what I want to do is just place a corner block right there and then move it to the bottom and then to the right. And this way you can see that the distance between this and that is basically one single block. And in here it's also one single block, which is perfect. Now we have created a cool distance and you just want to copy and paste it and make sure that it is always one single block between your newly added outline and also the previous outline. So now what we want to do is simply create like an inline, you can call it, that always has the same distance. And to do that, it's actually very simple. You just place a corner block right there and then bottom right, and that should be placed at the perfect spot. So in here we want to fill it. So we're just going to fill this as we want, just to make sure that it always is perfect. So now you guys can see that everywhere when we move this square, it always fits perfectly inside these gaps, which is just phenomenal, exactly what we want. So just don't forget about the corner blocks as well. Let me just use this one, move it, copy and paste, move it over there, and boom, nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to split my design into 2 different sections. The inner one is going to be black and the outer one is going to be our actual design. And this is just going to give it a lot better look because it just feels like it's 2 different block designs on top of each other, which I think always looks phenomenal. So now you guys see that we have a black outline, but we don't have a black outline for this one, which is not that very cool. So we're going to go to a new layer and actually add an outline. However, this time we don't want it to be an inline like this, because if we do that, it doesn't look that good anymore. It kind of looks like an exact replica of the one on the top. So the outline has to be on the other side. So it's something like this, right? So this place is basically always surrounded by a black outline. So to do that, you don't want to use these guys anymore because we're going to be using these guys and placing them like so. And we don't need a thicker ones because, we are using blocks on another grid block, right? So this one is on that grid block and that one is on a different grid block. So that way it just leads to a much smoother and much better looking outline. So you just want to copy and paste this throughout the whole thing. You can place this one. Just make sure that the distance between everything is always perfect. And if they overlap, it doesn't really matter. What really matters only here is that the distance is always the same and that the outline is fully covered. So we don't want to forget the corner blocks right there. And you guys are going to see that this is going to look a lot cleaner. So after doing that, just deselect and select everything, edit object and give it 4, and edit group and give that one a 1. So now you guys can see that we're just cooking right now. You guys can see that everywhere where this square is, it always is surrounded by black and then by white, which is just perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to a new layer. So let's say we go to like layer 10 or so, and then we want to fill the inner block with completely black blocks. So to do that, you're just going to go to here, and you could choose this one, but I don't like choosing that. And the reason for that is because if you select it, click on like edit object and then give it a color, let's say give it like red, it's actually not going to change color because by default this block is black and you cannot change the color of it. So just use this one, which is a lot better, and by default it's going to be white, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to change that, so just place it like that and just make sure that all of it is covered. So cover everything, and then what you want to do is delete the ones that are outside. So this one is outside, this one is outside, this one is outside, this one is outside. However, now there's a small problem because you guys can see that we have filled the area. However, there's this small area that is still not filled. So to do that, you just want to go to these spikes and scroll to the right, and you should see this specific block. So you just want to basically put these like so. So those ones are just like these ones, but they are scaled on 0.5, and you don't have to scale these ones. You can just use those ones. So now select everything, give it the color of 4, which is black. And now by going like that, you guys should see that we are starting to cook. So now what you want to do is, you know, think about what kind of block design do you want to have. So in my case, I want it to be kind of glowy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to these blocks, which I think look very, very cool, and I'm going to place them like so. And again, always when you add a new type of thing, you want to add them on a new layer. And in case you forgot and you accidentally added these on here, what you can do is select them, of course, and then click on edit group, and in here you can see editor L. L stands for layer, so you want to click in here like 5, so a free layer, which is 5. And now you guys can see that if you click on go to layer, you're gonna go to 5, which is just perfect. So I want to fill this in like with these guys, but I feel like they are a bit too big. And also another thing you want to make sure when you make your block design is that it should not feel too basic, right? So these blocks are super duper basic, and if I just like spam them like so, it's not going to look that good. So I'm gonna have to add my own twist to it and kind of make it a bit more original. And to do that, we're going to select all of these guys, click on scale, and we're going to scale them down to 0.5. And this way they're kind of the same, but they're also very, very different. So you want to copy and paste them pretty much everywhere, copy and paste like that, and then just make sure that everything is filled. And now you want to delete the ones that are not in the places where we want. So those ones, for example, we don't want them, and these guys also we don't want them. Those ones we don't want. And now you guys can see that we have filled this, which is starting to look pretty good. However, we don't want to fill the inner stuff as well, so we're just gonna get rid of that as well, like so. And now we have our block design solely where we want it, which is very important. You could add blocks behind the stuff where you don't need it, but it's going to be very unoptimized. So if you have a block that's here and you don't want to make it visible, just delete it, because that's gonna lead to a bit of issues if you don't. Okay, so we are super duper organized. We are creating a very original block design. So what I'm gonna do now is, I always suggest doing this when you have a color palette in your head and you want to kind of implement it. It is very important to start changing the entire atmosphere of the level so that you can see exactly how it looks like. So what I mean by that is change the background, the ground, and the colors of pretty much everything. So go to the settings up here, choose a different background. I'm gonna choose this one. I think it looks pretty cool. You can choose whatever you want. If you're using a block design that is for pixelated, I would, suggest using this one, or I think also that one is pretty cool, but I'm not using a pixelate, so I'm gonna use that one. You could use pixelate and non-pixelate, but I don't think it fits that well. So we're gonna choose another ground as well. We're gonna choose this ground. So this menu is basically where you can like set very basic stuff about your level, the start of your level. So now we have a new background, which is pretty cool. And by clicking on the gear again and on this plus right here, you guys are gonna see that there is a color menu where you can basically change the color of the background. So we're gonna make it fully like purple like that, and then we're gonna make it a bit darker. I always like to have my background very dark, and the reason for that is because I want to make a glowy styled level, which is why it is important to have the background as dark, so that the glowy block design just stands out really, really well. well. So go to the gear, and I'm gonna make the ground 1 and the ground 2 to black. So now you guys can see that we have created something. It looks pretty nice. So now we have the atmosphere. So it is very purpley. So to make the block design stand out, I'm gonna make like these squares. I'm gonna make them orange. And to do that, you just want to select everything and go to edit object. Now this one has a base and a detail color. And what this means is the base is basically like the outside, like the black stuff, and the detail is the white stuff over here. So we want to change the white stuff. So to do that, just go to detail and then select color 6 like so, and then you can change the color over here. So we want to make it blending, very important, and we want to make it kind of like orange, kind of like that, yeah. And then just click on OK, and you guys should see that the colors have changed to kind of orange, which I think looks very nice. So if this was not blending, I'm gonna show you guys how terrible that would look. You guys see that it's orange, but it's just very plain orange and it doesn't look that good. So I'm gonna go here and actually make it blending. And also, in case you guys didn't know, a color is always the same. So if we change the color of 6, like we make it, for example, let's say blue, it's going to make everything blue because that's the color channel that everybody is on, right? So yeah. So now what we're gonna do is, this looks very lame, and we said we want to make it a glowy stuff. So what we're gonna do is go to a new layer yet again, because we want to add new stuff. So I'm gonna go to layer 8 and I'm gonna add glowy objects. I'm gonna add these ones. I'm gonna add 4, just like we did when adding the block design, and then I'm gonna select everything and then make it kind of small. And now by just moving it like that, you guys will see that it perfectly aligns with the squares and exactly what we want. So we're just gonna copy and paste everything and copy and paste them down, and then copy and paste everything again and place it like that, and just delete the ones that you do not need. In our case, it is the outer ones and also the very inner ones. So now we have created these guys, and we're gonna give them the exact same color as the blocks. So it's gonna be 6, and now you guys are gonna see that there is a small difference. So this is without and this is with. However, what you want to do is select all of these guys, like the glowy stuff, and then click on scale, and then make sure that this one is enabled and scale them up. So this way you are basically scaling everything up, and you can check in how they look, and yeah, that looks not bad. And also another thing is that since this one is going to be way behind, what we're going to do is select all of them and then edit group and then go to B4. So this is going to put them in the very back, and we want these to kind of be in the front, so B3. And now you guys will see that it just looks a lot cleaner. And what you can do is, if you think it's a bit too bright, you can select all of them and then click on this one and then click it again. So now you're changing. Then you want to drag the brightness down. So you guys can see that if we drag it all the way to 0, they're going to be pretty much invisible, and all the way to 2, it's going to be a lot. So we're going to bring it all the way to maybe 0.7, something like that. And yeah, we're starting to look very nice. And also another thing I like to do is select them again and then go to the first layer, so to all, and then double click this one again. And I like to give it a new HSV. So we're gonna do something like this. Actually, I'm gonna go kind of red. Yeah, like that looks pretty nice. So -20 perhaps, and maybe a bit brighter. So like that looks pretty cool. And now we have like this orangey with red on top of it, which is gonna look a lot cooler. You guys see, this looks very nice. And later on, we're actually gonna make them, we're gonna add an effect to kind of change the color of all of them, like kind of like a rainbow, but we're gonna get to that in a bit. So now it is, when you're making your block design, it is all about just keep adding new stuff until it looks good. Now it is very important to make sure that your block design doesn't look too messy and not weird. So what I would suggest is actually taking breaks, because when you take breaks and come back to your block design again, you're gonna feel like your block design is brand new. So you're gonna basically like have a look at it from a new angle, you can say. So if there were any flaws in it or any things that you don't like, you're gonna spot them instantly. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add new stuff. We're gonna spice it up even more. So we're gonna go to layer 1, and then what we're gonna do is simply just add more stuff. So I have an idea that is basically kind of, you can see it as light, and you're gonna see exactly what I mean. So add these ones if you want to, and then kind of copy and paste them like so, and just do that, and then just copy and paste them again and again, and perhaps one more time. So what I'm trying to do is basically add, you can say like light inside the blocks. I'm gonna give it a different color so it kind of stands out as well. But now the problem is that we only want this to be visible between these two sections over here. So what we're gonna do is delete every single one of them that is basically outside. So this one is outside. So somehow we're gonna have to fill in this area. And I already told you guys that you can use these ones to fill in like that. However, this one has to be like a slope so that it fits perfectly. So we can use one of these guys, put them like so, and then scale them down to 0.5. And you don't want to do any free movement like so, but rather what you want to do is select them like that. Just move these guys. And now you guys can see that there's a small issue. You can't really move these like that. And there is a very sneaky cheat code that I found. And it is to basically go to build and then select this one and then move it to the right while having that selected. And it is very weird, but once you select this one, the grid goes to really small, so the movement of this one gets really small. And now by just using this one, it's gonna be perfectly aligned, and you guys can see it just looks phenomenal. So this one also goes out, so we're gonna copy and paste that one as well, put it in here, and this one should be, yeah, we're gonna move this one again like that, yeah, and then I'm gonna fill in like so, and like that. Yeah, this looks good. And these two we don't really need because they're inside, they're not going to be visible. This one, it doesn't really matter because this one's going to be behind the black stuff, so if it stays like that, it is okay. Or if you want to, you can just do that, but it doesn't really matter anyway. So this one doesn't go, doesn't matter. This one is a bit of a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually select everything and move them like so. Like, actually I'm going to do this and then move them down and then left. And what this is going to do is basically we want to not have these, but we want these to be perfectly aligned to the corner. So we're going to move it a bit more time, yeah, like that. Looks pretty cool. And the rest we don't really care. So this one could stay like that, or if you want to, you can do this. So now this one we also don't need because we can just copy and paste the smaller one, and we have created our lighting, which is just very cool. So we want to give this a new color. So select everything and give it a click on edit object, and then give it the color of 10. And then you can make this also a like orangey and also blending as well. And then what you want to do is go to all and then double click on this one. And now you guys can see that there's this menu where you can play around. So I would say let's have this as, oh yeah, purple looks very nice, a bit dark. Yeah, this is looking spicy. So yeah, you can just play around and see what colors fit perfectly. And now you guys can see that the black outline that we added is starting to show slowly, but it's going to look a lot more phenomenal at the end. Just wait and see. Also, I just saw an issue in here, so you guys can see that since these two are overlapping, there's actually this weird square, and to fix that it's actually very simple. So instead of using these ones, we're gonna use the smaller ones because they are smaller and they fit in that area. And in case you don't want to select them and give them 10 and then change this one again to the perfect value, what you can do is simply select one of these guys, click on copy values, and then select these two and then paste color. And this is perfect. It's going to basically do all of this for you, and it is also very perfect. Nice. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to add glow on top of this because, like I said, this is going to be very glowy. So we're going to select where is it, this one, and then we're going to give it a new layer, let's say 2, or you can go to the layer first and then place it. And we're just going to basically like add these pretty much like that, and then we want to just make them perfectly align with the block's position. This way they don't look weird because we don't want them to look weird. And now you guys can see there is a small area that can't be filled with these guys. It's too big, so you can just use this one and just flip it like so, and it's just perfect fitting. And you can just place it in here as well by clicking that one more time. So now this one we don't want it to be black, obviously, so select it, edit object, and then give it the color of 6. And now you guys should see that it's starting to look really cool. However, what I also like to do is we're gonna do it up here first. So we're gonna select everything, copy and paste it, and then go to the warping system. Place this at the bottom center like that, and then scale it down, and then move it down, and then double click on this, and then make it a bit more saturated. And this should give your glow a much cleaner look. And we're going to do that for all of these guys. So we're just going to copy and paste this one and place it pretty much everywhere. As you guys can see, I don't use the free move over here to move it freely. And the reason for that is because if you're using glow, you should be very precise about your movements. So you don't want to use some kind of, inaccurate ways to move the block. So like that, we have created a very nice looking block. However, there's still a lot missing. This is still nowhere near featured worthy. So yeah, we're gonna have to spice this up even more. So we're gonna go to a new layer. Let's say we go to 4, and one object I always love adding is this one, and this one just looks absolutely phenomenal. So if you add it like that, go to edit object. As you guys remember, I said that some objects have base and detail. So this black stuff is the base and the white stuff is the detail. So select everything, and we want to make the black stuff completely transparent. So to do that, you want to give it the color of, let's say, 5, and then you want to make 5 black and also blending. This way it's going to make it completely transparent. And I always like to have my colors 4 as black and 5 as black blending. So now you guys should see that we only have those sections, which is just perfect. So you just want to place these like so, and just make sure that they are perfectly placed at the places where the block basically faces up. However, now you guys we're gonna see that there's a small issue. For example, in here and also in there, you can't really fill this without it doing problems. So there's a secret object that is placed under here, and if you scroll to the left, you should see this one, and that is actually the exact same one as that one. It is a bit too big or too small, so you can use this one if you want to. And yeah, this does not look that bad. Just make sure that your positioning is perfect, and that should be pretty nice. So place it in here and also in there, and now we're actually going to give it a detail color of 10. So this way they're all kind of like that, which looks pretty cool. However, there's some weird stuff because these guys should be on top of everything. So we're going to go edit, select everything firstly, and then edit group, and then T1, and then just give it is the order of 9. And in case it's still not on top of everything, just give it like T2, and now it should be pretty good looking. So now you guys can still see that the block just doesn't look that good. It's just there's stuff missing, or it's just a bad block design. So we want to spice it up and just keep adding stuff until it looks good without making it messy. This is really all block design is about. So we're gonna go to a new layer again, and this time we're gonna add glow on the inside, because otherwise we would not be able to see the black outlines that we added. So again, just place one of these guys, and want to have them exactly like so. And we also want to add this one like that, place it in there, and copy and paste it for this area, and select everything, give it 6. And now you guys should see that it's just looking much cleaner, but still not too good. So there's actually a very cool block that I like to use, which is under the particles and in here. This one is very nice looking, and especially if you scale it like so and you place it right there. So you want to select one of the glow objects, copy values, and then select this one, and then paste color. This way we have the exact same color. You guys can see that it's just starting to look absolutely gorgeous. So now go to here, copy and paste it, and just put it in the corners. And this one, you want to make it a bit smaller. So by using the warping system, using that, do that. Very cool. So select it again, go to layer, and go over here. So we want to add it from there, and placing the anchor point right there and make it a bit larger should be pretty cool. And another one over here like so, and another one right there. And this time it doesn't really matter that I'm using a free move, because it doesn't have to be that accurate. I mean, it's just on the edge. So you guys can see that just this tiny detail that we added is just adding so much to the block design. And the reason for that is because we were using the black outline, and it wasn't visible that much at the beginning, the black outline, until we added this glow like that. And you can see that it just brings this black outline to life. So we can finally actually see the stuff that we made. So there is more ways to spice this up, but you guys can see that, you know, we've added a lot of stuff on the inside on here, for example, but this one we have kind of left empty, and this is gonna stay that way for a bit, because I actually want to just finish the outside first, and then we're gonna go to the inside. But yeah, if your block design is like that, it still needs a bit of work because it just doesn't feel finished. And so one thing that is very important when it comes to block design is that your stuff doesn't look too repetitive, because if you play a lot of online levels, you should see that the block design doesn't look too copy and pasted. However, this one kind of looks like, because for example, these ones are, the pattern in here is always the same. They're just kind of like squares, and also these guys kind of everything the same. So we're gonna add a bit of changes to kind of make it more random instead of very strict. So you guys see this block, there's also a similar one, this one for example, that you could also use instead of these ones. So for example, we can remove, let's say this one, one and place this one instead like that. But that's very takes a lot of time to do and is also very weird. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to a new layer. Let's say we go to layer 16 and we're simply just gonna add this object right where is it? This one right there. So you see, I'm just selecting objects that I think would fit my style. So it really all comes down to how your style looks like and what type of objects you want to use. So for example, for me, this object was really helpful, which is why I used it. So you want to scale this down to, let's say 0.5 should be good. And what you want to do is place it right there perfectly. So again, go to here, select this one, and then move it to the right by clicking on D on your keyboard, and just copy and paste this and copy and paste it again and make a line, and just do that over and over again. And we don't want it to go up like that, so we kind of want it to do this. And you guys can see that I'm using it in a very precise way. So I'm just moving it one grid block by default, and I'm doing that because I wanted to kind of have this pattern still. So I'm gonna just basically just move it one single time to the right, and yeah, that should be pretty good. So you guys can see that every second object of these actually has these lines, which is just perfect. So now we want to give these guys the same color as our good old glow. So you want to select the glow and copy values, and now be careful, you only want to click on paste color. If you click on paste state, it's going to bring these guys on a different layer, so you don't want to do that. And so go here, and you guys should see that it just kind of looks a lot cleaner, but we want to change the colors. So select all of these guys and then double click like that and make it more more yellowish. And yeah, this just looks a lot cleaner. Maybe we can even bring the brightness up. Actually, like that looks pretty nice. Yeah, so you guys can see that it just looks a lot cleaner. However, you guys still see that this one is not that visible. The black outline that we added is not so visible. So to make it visible, we're gonna have to add glow to it. Also, don't forget to always save your level because you don't want to lose it. Am I right? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the layer where we had our glow, the good old glow, and we're gonna start spicing up the inside of the block, because you guys can see that we have actually added some pretty decent content on the outside of the block. However, now it's down to the inside of the block. So copy and paste this one and place it in like a corner style, something like so, like that. And then you want to just place these perfectly under here, where you kind of make the width of the glow always the same. So just copy and paste this one and just place it perfectly. Copy and paste, place it up there, rotate, and copy and paste, place it in there. Copy and paste one more time, and the final time should be over there. So now you guys should see that it's starting to look a lot cleaner. And also one last one over here for the sake of this block, and in case we're doing it, just do it also over here like that. So you guys can see that it just looks a lot cleaner, and I kind of feel like this one we don't really need. So yeah, we have made the black outline visible finally. So we want to just make sure that the width is always the same. I kind of feel like this one is way too thick, so I'm gonna move it a bit outwards like so. And yeah, that looks pretty cool. Also this one, we want to move it a bit out like that. And yeah, we're just gonna make sure that the width is always the same. Otherwise, it's gonna look a bit weird, and we don't want it to look weird. Am I right? So yeah, looks phenomenal. However, there's still more stuff to be added to the black stuff because it's not really that finished. So we want to add new stuff. So what do we gotta do first? Can you guys guess? We gotta go to a new layer as always. So we're gonna go to layer 12, and we're gonna add some of these guys, some of the particle stuff, because I think they look very cool. Specifically, we're gonna add this one because I think it's gonna look cool. So let's just add it over there, and we're gonna make it kind of like drippy, just like my cheese. I like to have it very moldy. So we're just gonna copy and paste this like so, and we're gonna move it kind of like that, and just copy and paste it, and copy and paste it, move it like so, and like so, and then one more time, move it to here like that, delete the ones that you don't need, and like so. So now you guys can see that these guys don't look that cool, and if you want to make them look cool, just select all of them and then click on here and then click on align X. And what it's gonna do is just make the distance between all of them the same, which is gonna make it a lot phenomenal. Now clicking on here is gonna do nothing because they look terrible, because we still have to make them on T1. So select everything, edit group, and then T1. So now you guys can see that just by adding literally just 11 objects, we have made this like pretty much much 2 or 3 times better looking. Looks very cool. I like to stare at it because it's just looking pretty good. And also another thing I saw is that there isn't really that much distinction between the black stuff over here and the blocks outside of it. So we're gonna add some black glow. To do that, we're gonna go to the layer 13 and we're gonna add, where is it? We're gonna add these ones specifically, and we're just gonna spam them like so. We're gonna make like an outline over here, and we want it to look cool because that's exactly what we do over here. So use the corner blocks to fill in the corners, use the different corner blocks to fill in these guys, select them all, give them 4, and then move them. I think they have the perfect layer. Yeah, B2 is perfect. Yeah, now you guys can see that it just looks much cleaner. So now while we're at it, let's actually also start decorating this one because we haven't touched that at all. So we're gonna go to this one, and we're gonna, because we want to use like this gradient over here, so we want to give it a color of, the detail is going to be 6 and the base is going to be blending black, and this is going to just bring us this glow, which is just phenomenal. So move it like that, looks pretty nice. And then we're going to simply just fill in this stuff with these guys, give them 6 and a bit of a different hue. So double click this one and give them a hue of -25, and looks pretty cool. So we're gonna add spikes as well. We're gonna add these two, and I also like to have them black on the inside. However, if you make the detail 4, it kind of feels like the outline is not that cool. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna make them all white like so, and then we're gonna copy and paste them and then make them small, like 0.5 perhaps, maybe 0.6, then move them down like so, and then give them the color of 4. So this way they just look a bit better, and most importantly, not too basic. So I also like to add this one on top of these guys, give it one transparent color, the second one make it 6. So now you guys can see it just looks much cleaner. Also, I'm gonna make it a bit darker on the 2. So this is base and this is detail. So detail is gonna be a bit like so. And yeah, also don't forget to add glow on top of these guys. And now what we can do is just delete this one actually, and we can just add this one instead. Something like that. All right, we're gonna move these guys down by a bit just so that they don't look weird. And now we're gonna actually start spicing this up by adding shadows. And I like to add shadows every single time because they just bring your level to a new level. So we're gonna go to layer 15, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the slopes like these ones, and we're just gonna do something like so. We're gonna do this, and then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add, where is it, that one default block, this one. And so this is the shadow. So we want the light to be coming from the top left, so the shadow is gonna be in here. So make sure this is perfectly centered, and we're gonna copy and paste this one, and we're gonna remove this one because it doesn't belong here, and we're gonna do like that. So now we have 2 shadows, and now what you want to do is select everything, go to edit object, and give it the color of 3. 3 in my case is always black, and opacity kind of like 0.5, something like that. And now you guys can see that we have created a cool thing. However, these ones we want to get rid of because we don't want the stuff to be outside. So just delete the unnecessary ones like these ones. And what you want to do is copy and paste it, scale it down to 0.5, move it up like so. And then we want to use our trick where we select this one like that, and we want to fill in the stuff like so. Select this one, move it like so, and this one could basically just stay like that. Select one of these guys, copy value, select everything, paste color. Exactly phenomenal. And now we also want to add shadows to these specific blocks over there. So to do that, it's very simple. We just copy one of these guys, move it to the perfect spot, copy and paste it again like so. And now you can just copy and paste it, and you want to fill in these guys. So copy values, paste color like so. And now you guys can see that we have created a cool little thing. So just copy and paste that one, place it in here, and just select these ones, copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. Remove everything that's below the ground because that's going to be visible. And yeah, very cool. So you guys can see that this doesn't look that cool because it's kind of above the glow, and the shadow should actually be behind everything. So select everything, edit group, and B4. Just make it like -4 or something. And now you guys can see that our block design is starting to look spicy. Still to be spiced up, but we're gonna do that. Don't worry. worry. So how about we actually spice up some of the toppings of the block? And to do that, we're going to save the level firstly because we don't want to lose any progress. And we're going to select the spikes and just gonna like put them in here because this is the spot where you're not going to be able to land in the gameplay. So we're going to do this and one more time over there. Just delete these ones. And ooh, what happened here? What is this? Okay, I have no... What? Where did these guys come from? What? I am so confused. These guys come from here? It seems like it, but I don't know. Well, I have no idea. This has never happened to me. I've been editing since like 2017 and this has never happened to me. That was so weird. Anyway, we just deleted these guys. So yeah, now we have spikes which look pretty cool. However, we want to spice this up a bit more. So we're gonna add some grass on it. So these guys, we're gonna add some of those and just kind of add them and give them a different scale. Just place it like that. And once you have them all, just select them, click on edit object, give them the color of 10, and then you also want to give them a saturation of 0.4. This way they are a bit white but not entirely white, and just move them like that, and you guys should see that a lot more randomness makes it a lot more cool. So nice. Still to be spiced up. I mean, it's very static right now, so we're gonna have to add more stuff in a bit. But one thing I love adding is static animations, and we're gonna go to a different layer again because we're gonna add new stuff. And just try using any of these guys that you want, and I'm gonna use this one specifically. And a secret in here is, since they are always running, you can actually make them stop at a single frame. And to do that, you can just click on edit special and single frame, bring it to 1 or 2 or whatever you guys want. And then you guys can see that we have an object that you can place, which just looks phenomenal. So just choose the frame that you want. I think frame 2 or 3 should look pretty cool. So we're gonna basically like line these up like that. And once you have them all set up like so, you want to give them the group, the color of 10 on the base and also the detail. However, we want to double click on this one and then give one kind of a more kind of bright yellowish, and the 2 should be more red by -16, -17 should be pretty good. And you guys can see how we added this on the corners, and yeah, this looks a lot cleaner. And the reason why is because hard edges like that, when it's very basic, it just looks very basic, right? So we don't want to make it look too basic. And also we're going to add some stuff on top of these guys. I'm going to use this like laser stuff, and we're going to go to a frame, let's say frame 3, 4, frame 5. Yeah, 5 looks cool. So we're going to copy the values, paste the color, and then copy this one, maybe place it in here, give it a new frame, maybe, yeah, like that. Looks pretty nice. And you guys can see that it just looks a bit better. And yeah, we're going to keep spicing it up. So now we're actually gonna get into making this less static by adding particles. Particles basically make your level like 100 times better. So we're just gonna add this over there, and we're gonna click on edit special, and this is gonna bring up this menu, which is very scary, but I have a full tutorial on the entire particle system. So if you want to check that out, you can do that after this video. So the angle, this one we're gonna bring to 0, and then we're gonna add this one at maybe 60. We're gonna see if that fits, and the speed, kind of bring it down, the lifetime a bit up, and then click on calc. And we're gonna go to the visual. We're gonna bring all of these guys all the way to 0, and we're gonna do is we're gonna give them a color. So we're gonna do like that, and then yellowish like so. And now you guys should see that we have a very cool looking particle. Now a cheat code I like to do is that since the position where they spawn from is always random, we can't really exactly know where the edges are. So what you want to do is go to motion, give them like max particles, and then click on max. And what it's gonna do is just spawn them all at once. So this way you can basically like line up your particles. So click on here and then exit. So click and exit, and you can see exactly where it is. So now we want to make this one a bit bigger so that it fits with the size of the block. So maybe 66 should be good. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So maybe a bit more to the left. Yeah, so that's perfect position, perfect spots, and actually a bit to the left like that. And now we want to bring this one back to its original number. So 26 I think was pretty pretty good. Yeah, that looks very, very nice. And now we're just simply just gonna copy and paste the particle, and we're gonna move it. By the way, click F4 to show these guys. Click on here and hide particles if you're on the phone, and like that. And we're gonna make these guys a bit smaller because that's the area that we want to cover. And maybe 0.3. Yeah, that sounds good. 0.3 like that. And make the max particles also a bit lower because the area now is much smaller. So something like this, and also in here the position is going to be a bit smaller and also less particles. And copy and paste that one, place it in here, and this one's going to go a bit lower and a bit less max particles, like so. Just copying and pasting this and giving them the perfect value. This is a one block, so it should be perfect with these guys. Now you guys can see that we have created life to this thing. So now one thing I love adding is if you go to crop tops levels, like the tower levels, they actually have a very sneaky thing that happens. And we're gonna go to the sewers. I can't type sewers. This one has a very cool looking torch. So this one like that, we're gonna just steal it, right? But don't tell RobTop, because if you do, he's probably gonna delete your account. We just copied it and we're gonna paste it in here and just give it the right colors. Also, you guys can see that there's the particle, there's this one, and there's that one. So yeah, just place them like so, give them a brand new layer, remove all of these guys, and now just make it a bit smaller like so. Yeah, and you just placed it like that in here. Yeah, not bad. Maybe this one should be behind the, yeah, like so. Looks pretty nice. So now just copy and paste it one more time over there, and that looks pretty nice. We're gonna make it a bit smaller by going to the warping system and just locking it in like so. This one also a bit smaller. This is just like random details on top of the block to make it look spicy. So very nice. We're actually very close to finishing this. However, we still want to add some effects to it, or some stuff to make it more spicy. So the first thing we want to do is add a gradient in the background, and to do that it's actually very simple. You just want to add any two blocks that you want. I'm just going to use these lines. I'm going to add two, and then I'm going to go to the first one and click on edit group, and then you want to give it a new group ID. So I'm going to give it the group ID of 1, and the second one I'm going to give it the group ID of 2 by clicking on add. And now what we're basically doing is we want to have a gradient between these two, and we're going to add a gradient trigger. Place it like so. It's going to be super duper white, but don't worry. So click on edit special 1 and 2 and give it a new ID by clicking on this plus, make it additive, and click OK. Now you want to make the colors different, so I'm going to go to edit object 5 and 6, and now you guys should see that there's a gradient coming from the right, which looks cool, but we're gonna rotate it like so that it perfectly fits from the bottom. So we're gonna move this one like that and that one like so, and we're gonna double click on this and change the color of the glow to maybe a bit more so. Yeah, that looks, yeah, see, just adding 3 objects just made this like 5 times better. Looks very clean. So now another thing I like to add is, okay, let me just go ahead and actually playtest this. You guys are going to see that if we kind of like, you guys see that you take a look on the left. If you look on the left, you guys are going to see that the blocks kind of go away, and you can kind of see that this is not really a shadow. It's kind of made up shadow, which doesn't look that cool. So to fix that, it's very simple. Just add this one in here, and you guys should see that if we move everything to the right, it's going to come and go without any animations. So now you guys can see that the left just looks clean, super duper clean. So now we want to spice it up even more by adding a particle effect that's basically going to be like a snow. So now it's all down to just, you know, adding a bit of atmosphere stuff to make it look cooler. So we want to add a particle up here and edit special. Want to get the texture of snow. Where's snow, and we're gonna make it the size variations like so. We're gonna bring these guys to 0, go to extra, start size equal to end, and you want to click on motion, click on this 3, and then move it down like so, maybe something like that. Make this one all the way to 0, bring this to 100, this one one to 30, and the lifetime, change it to 5, change this one to maybe 1.5 or something, and fade in and fade out is always important. And I guess that's it, just a bit more color. Let's start it as orange and end it at purple, kind of like that. And also adding a bit of variations for this one would make it a lot cooler. So now you guys can see that we have created very nice looking snow. However, none of them are rotating, so to make them rotate, just add a bit of random spin at the end. So some of them rotate too much, some of them don't at all, and yeah, looks very nice. So we're gonna make this in the background, so B4, and edit special, and what we're gonna do is change this one to 250 so that the area that they cover is much larger. Go to this one, maybe make it 40, and now you guys should see that we have a very like the atmosphere is just so much cleaner. We're actually gonna make them rotate a bit more. I still like them to have a bit more rotation, maybe like 60 or 90, and now you guys should see that they rotate a lot and they have the perfect color and the perfect size and the perfect speed. It just looks phenomenal. So this is just a random thing. You could add something like these guys, and these you can find in the pixel blocks, and just like scale them up like crazy, and then just like give them very dark colors like 0 and 0.16 and place it in the background. So this time you guys are gonna see that this is how it's gonna look. This is just like this is no longer like block design stuff, but to make it look spicy, you gotta add some of that stuff. So like I said, we're gonna add some effects to make it kind of look cool. Just on the way, I always like to add like bonus stuff at the end for those that watch until the end. So we're gonna select all of these guys and also all of these guys, and we're gonna give them a group ID of 3. And then what you want to do is add an area tint. Go to edit object, looks scary, just click P1, add this one in here, input 3, the group object they actually had, and HSV, make this all the way to that, this and this one to 50. And now if you start, you guys are going to see that those are going to turn to kind of bluish like rainbow, which looks phenomenal. Looks very cool. You can do this if you want to. If you don't want to, also I don't really mind. But also, in case you selected those guys, also make sure to select these ones because they also belong there. Give them the group ID of 3, and this just looks very nice. You can add randomness, but I don't think that's gonna look that great. Let me just test it out. Yeah, no, so just make this like 60, and yeah, looks very cool. So now the very final step is we're actually just gonna make this like a cool gameplay by giving the speed of 2 and maybe making you a robot. So now you go like that, and we're also gonna add a green orb, and we're gonna decorate it like really quickly. So we're gonna add this one, kind of add the speed at minus 0.8, don't start randomize, and also disable delayed loop. Gonna give it the color of green and also blending, and this way it should look like that. And then we're gonna add a bit more particles. So we're gonna add this one, we're gonna make it radius, bring this to 0, bring this to minus 300, bring this like that, bring this to 0, bring this like so, bring the texture to this, and then make it a really big, bring these guys to 0, and then make it dynamic rotation, and then go on here and make it super duper green, and bring this a bit lower like so, it looks like that. And then you can just copy and paste this, and then rotate, copy and paste, and rotate, and copy and paste, and rotate. And also make sure to add a bit of fade in for every single one of them so they don't look too weird. So just placing this on top and then scaling everything down should give it this phenomenal look, right? Very simple, and also very quick. So nice. We are done. So let's actually give this a try. I'm just gonna go ahead and actually add a time warp trigger to make it like 0.2, make it slow so we can peacefully take a look at it and see how beautiful our block design is. So we have created a rainbow effect, which looking at it in slow motion doesn't look that great, but if you're going really fast, I'm actually just going to disable it for another showcase. And yeah, with that we have created a beautiful looking block design. However, you guys can see that the glow in the background kind of goes away. Not too sure why that is. Maybe just try moving these guys to here, giving them the actual hide. If the glow disappears, just move this guy a bit up, and that should do it, hopefully. And with that, we have created a beautiful looking block design, something that you guys have asked for a very long time, and finally here it is. So yeah, don't forget to slap that like and also subscribe, and I will see you guys in one of the next tutorials. Also click one of those videos that is on the screen right now, because I'm gonna see you there and we can just keep talking. So yeah, I will see you guys over there.